Okay, here we go. Stand by. 3, 2, 1, action.
Assume nothing.
Brash, bald-faced blasphemy.
Question everything.
I find it extremely hard to imagine.
Open your eyes.
It is quite all right to be an atheist.
The fastest growing group of people in the country has been measured as being those who have no belief or who are atheists.
You don't have to be apologetic or quiet about it.
Challenge the opposition.
You see religion on 100 fronts losing the argument.
And start thinking. This is the Thinking Atheist worldwide.
I know the first of the year is often a time where many people go through moments of reflection. I don't really do the New Year's resolution thing. I used to, but you know how that works out, 2 or 3 weeks. Whatever it was. I mean, if you are going to make a resolution, if you're going to make a life change, it's normally in a larger context, something bigger than January the 1st. But lately I found myself kind of thinking about the site, the shows, the videos, and tonight's show is sort of a product of that reflection. And I'm probably going to catch a lot of hell for a show about random acts of kindness because some of the harder edges in the atheist movement are going to think I've become Oprah. You're kidding me. Really? Touchy-feely stuff for the entire hour? I mean, come on, let's deal with the hard issues. Let's talk about the damage done by superstition. Let's celebrate scientific discovery. But you're going to just share stories about people doing nice stuff for other people? That's lame. I can already hear it. I can already see the comment section. Well, I don't think it's lame. When I started the website in 2009, thethinkingatheist.com, and as I've said on many occasions, it was not my intention to position myself as the thinking atheist. I'm self-aware enough to know where I stand in a generation of amazing minds. I'm down here in the kiddie pool, right? I'm at the kiddie table. They're at the big table with all the adults. You see the amazing writings of Stephen Hawking. I'm reading a book by Dr. Steven Pinker called The Better Angels of Our Nature. Big book. It's taken me a while to get through it with all the stuff I've got going on. It's amazing. And by reading it, you really do get a sense of his keen mind. We did a show last week which focused on quite a few quotes and sort of sections and writings from Christopher Hitchens. Jeez. I had to read Hitch 22 like twice because it was so freaking thick. The body of text was so thick that I thought, I'm an idiot. I'm not the thinking atheist, but we should all be thinking. We should all have our minds engaged. And the thinking atheist is an icon. It is an idea. It's an encouragement that faith is not the answer. And I'm very happy with where we've come. But as I look at the thinking atheist, I'm more and more looking at the word atheist and wondering, was that the right direction to go? Not because it doesn't describe me. I am an atheist. Many of you are non-theist. You are atheist. You simply do not believe in God. We don't say we disproved God. It's just that we don't hold to any deity because there is no evidence to support it. And because you cannot sort of prove the negative, you can't say, well, there definitely is no God anywhere. Just like you can't disprove any number of things, and those of us who are fans of the celestial teapot and the flying spaghetti monster, we have been down that road. But I mean, by defining myself largely by what I do not believe, I'm an atheist, I don't believe in God. Well, Seth, what do you believe in? What are you about? When I first deconverted, I felt my whole world just turned upside down. And after I came out of religion, I looked at my life and I began to look at the cocoon I'd been raised in, and I felt really pissed off. I didn't have a chance. There's no real conduit for information outside of, the pastorate, outside of the scripture. no real trust of genuine evidence in any of these circles. Had I not gone out and just done some digging, I'd still be a happy, clappy Christian. And so I went through a time when and you can see it really reflected in a lot of what I was doing. I didn't have the podcast when we first started, so I was a video producer pretty much full time. And I was rabid about producing videos. I was doing 2 or 3 a month, burying myself day, night, weekend in the production room, really taking some pretty hard shots at religion. And I'm glad I did. The story of Susie, a very sarcastic look at the way Christians approach the world. And, the Noah's Ark video, those types of things. There was a lot of sarcasm, a lot of biting humor, and those can still materialize. I mean, I'm a teddy bear, but I occasionally feel like religion is deserving of mockery. The ridiculous should be treated with ridicule. And after that time of sort of regaining my tempo, finding my voice again, what am I about? Well, the Thinking Atheist then, for me, became a place where we could be sort of a safe haven for the non-believer. The people who are dealing with insanity every single day of the week in their personal and professional lives. The website is a conduit for information. The social media page is really a place for people to land where they can breathe and be themselves. Man, everybody in my family is hugely religious, and they all think I'm broken, and they all think I'm being co-opted by Satan, and they all think I'm hellbound, and they treat me differently now, and they don't trust me, and they're going after my children, and whatever their stories are, and they come to the Thinking Atheist, and then they find a place to land. Which is why I don't do a whole lot of theist activity on our social media pages, because there's plenty of Christian or Islamic or whatever religion websites out. There's plenty of them out there. Plenty of places for you guys to go and talk Jesus. This is for the non-believer. This is a place where they can come and they can just vent. They can share a link that celebrates science. They can post a link about the pastor who allegedly tried to walk on water and drowned. By the way, that's a hoax. I saw 5 or 6 links going around this week. That's a hoax. There's no evidence for it anywhere. It's been floating around in one incarnation or another for years. They can ask questions. Hey, how do you deal with this? What's your take on that? I saw a post just today about how to raise a free thinker. Well, we just had done a podcast a few months back with Dale McGowan, able to respond and post that link, providing benefit, giving support, reminding people that they're not alone. And so the Thinking Atheist sort of morphed into this support mechanism, right? It's a community. It's home. I know it sounds sappy, but that's how I feel about it. And we see our numbers continue to grow. And many of the people who come and join the page, or just maybe they don't like the page because it'll put them on the radar of a religious boss or even a parent, really turn their life upside down. They're sort of waiting for a better time, but they still come by the page and visit and hang out and enjoy it. It's a way to be reminded that you're not alone and you're not crazy. To be surrounded by the conversation of rationality. And lately I've wanted to be about more. What good are you, Seth? What good are you? Lately, I've just felt like I want to be about people. I just want to be about trying to do something for someone somewhere. Not necessarily grand gestures, broad strokes, these big sort of hallmark moments, but let's focus on people in some way. It was that reason that we did the charity drive in December, which we described in last week's show as well. A huge success, thanks to all of you. I got an email from LaDonna York down in Dallas, Texas. Thanks to this community, they're giving out like basic necessities to homeless people in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, people who would have had nothing. They're giving out basic necessities in Calcutta, India, thanks to this community. It's a young lady who is now back on the waiting list for a double lung transplant, thanks to this community. And I have met those people, and in my youth, I was those people. who was all about number one. You know, me, whatever. I don't care. Nothing changes. I'm looking out for number one. But as I've hit middle age, I've come to the conclusion that that is not the most fulfilling way to live, at least for me and for many others. Right, to become the kind of person, you'll light up when you receive a gift, but you'll light up even more when you give a gift to somebody else. The wrapping paper opens up and you see that smile. You get a greater reward by giving them a gift than if you had been the recipient. And I'm convinced that if we are going to be about human solutions in this world, we're not looking up to the sky and saying, I'm going to pray for change, but instead saying, I'm going to do whatever I can. Even if I'm swimming against the tide, even if these statistics are against me. And the cynicism is easy to get into. Trust me, it's an easy house to walk into because there's so much crap going on in the world. Well, I don't want to be that guy. And I'll tell you, it's been months. I had this conversation with Natalie the other day. I was just like, I love what I do. I love these people. I love the opportunity to do radio again. I love getting out on the road. We've got Arizona and North Carolina on the calendar. I'm trying to get California. I'm going to be in the San Diego area. And I just finished the production on a promo for the Imagine No Religion 4 event, which is coming up in mid-May in Kamloops, British Columbia, Canada. And it's going to be huge. Dan Barker's going to be there, and Jerry DeWitt. Dr. Carolyn Porco's going to be there. Dr. Eugene Scott's going to be there. Jerry Coyne. I loved his book, Why Evolution is True. I can't wait to meet him. They're going to show The Unbelievers, the film, and Lawrence Krauss is going to be there to do Q&A after they show the movie. How awesome is that going to be? So, I'm jazzed. I am really excited about this year. But on top of that, I would like a little bit more. I want to try to create more opportunities to not just bitch about religion, but do something good in its place. Finding an opportunity to help somebody else, doing something amazing. Even a small gesture can transform somebody, and I know that sounds cliche, but it's absolutely true. I was at a restaurant once. This was years ago. I don't know what happened, but this young lady was part of the wait staff, and she was serving our table, and she was visibly upset. I don't know what happened. Crying, the tears in the eyes. And to this day, I don't know what the story is. Everybody at the table just decided at the end of the meal to quadruple our tip. I don't know if it was the right thing to do or not, but we looked at somebody and we thought, let's do something. And I don't know what the tip was. It wasn't an expensive restaurant. There's like 5 of us. I'd spent years. I still remember the day. Not because I saw her face or got a thank you or was appreciated or what have you, but because I smile at the thought of her coming back to that table, upset about something, and who knows what it is. Could have been something horrible in the family. Could have been love problems. It could have been she just had her ass chewed out by the boss, and maybe for legitimate reasons. I don't know what happened. I still remember that. There was a story by a woman named Rosanna, a story that was actually printed in Reader's Digest a little over 3 years ago. It said this: driving home from work one evening in the pouring rain, my headlights illuminated 2 eyes on the side of the road. I stopped to investigate, finding a very wet, bedraggled-looking cat looking up at me and meowing pitifully. A car must have hit it, and now it lay in the gutter. It was unable to move. I checked for a collar and an ID. There was none. So I flattened out a cardboard box from the trunk, and I slid the cat onto it, and I covered it in a blanket. At the nearest veterinary clinic, the vet examined the cat and said this: he's about 8 months old, he's got a broken front and hind leg, but I'd need x-rays to know the extent of the damage. Now, he's not your cat. I don't know if you want to go ahead with all this. It could get kind of expensive. I knew it was probably going to cost me hundreds of dollars, The alternative was the cat being put to sleep. So the next morning, the vet rang and said the x-rays confirmed broken front leg, 2 badly splintered breaks in the hind leg. He said, look, I'll put a metal pin in his back leg to keep it immobilized till it's healed. He'll have slightly shorter hind legs, but it's not going to affect his movement. He should recover. I contacted the ASPCA to no avail. So all day I looked forward to picking up my little friend. And carrying the cat into the lobby, the vet smiled. Yeah, he's a happy little guy. He hasn't stopped purring since he woke up. The staff's quite taken with him. Now, I hardly recognize this cat. His previously matted, dirty fur was now a beautiful silver gray with a dark charcoal mask around his eyes and nose like a bandit. His front leg was in a cast. Hind leg was taped, the pin protruding at each end. And he just lay there looking right at me, just purring. I thanked the doc, and I went out to the receptionist to pay the bill. I looked at it, and I told her, I think you've given me the wrong account here. This is only $85. And he had x-rays, and he had an operation on his legs. And she looked, and she said, no, that's right. The vet has only charged you for the drugs, for the medication. And he left a message for you. And underneath the total were the words special rate for adoptions. I was speechless at this kind and generous gesture. It was obvious he'd be embarrassed if I made a big fuss, so I just paid the account, and underneath his message I wrote, with grateful thanks, Mom and Bandit. Oh, I can totally get down on the animal stories. I can totally get down on the animal rescue stories, people. What about your random acts of kindness or your perspective on it? Let's start with area code 602. You're on the Thinking Atheist radio podcast. Hi, who's this?
Hi, Seth. This is Christy. I'm a huge fan of the show. I've been listening since 2011. I actually called into your episode, Harry Potter is of the Devil, back in January 2012.
What a great episode that was, too, as we talked about all the things that our culture told us was infected with evil. Just a great time. Well, I'm glad you called. I'm glad you're calling now. What's going on?
Oh, thank you so much. Well, I was just going to share a story about friendship. So friendship means a lot to me, and I think that in true friendship that you would do whatever you can for the other person and really be there for them. So my story was back in 2009. I was going to California to celebrate getting my associate degree, and my best friend at the time had always dreamed of going there. So I helped save up money so he could come with me. So it was really fun. He was really excited because he lives in Pennsylvania, so I don't think he'd ever been to a warm place.
That's awesome. Well, I appreciate the story, and I think it's a great one, a great way to kick off the show today.
Oh, thank you. And I also wanted to say that I'm really excited to hear that you're coming to Phoenix, because when I last called the show, I lived in North Carolina, but I actually moved to Phoenix since then. So me and my boyfriend are definitely planning to attend your event, and we're really excited to meet you.
I'm excited to meet you. Those who haven't come to a tour stop, my presentations live are just like the radio show, except we get to do it all in a big room with, usually we'll have between 50 and 300 people, depending on the city. And we do a lot of Q&A and talk. People can comment. I mean, it's not like I have any great wisdom. So we just sit back and just sort of go back and forth, and we take pictures, and we hug, and we just hang out. And it's so much fun to get all of these sort of infidels in the same room. And so we're doing 4 cities in 3 days in Arizona: Phoenix, Tucson, Sedona, and Flagstaff. All of those are at the events column at thethinkingatheist.com. And you tell your man that I will look forward to seeing you guys here in just over a month, okay?
Okay, great. And it's actually 2 days before my birthday, so it will be the perfect early birthday celebration for me.
I love it. We'll have a party. Well, thanks for calling.
All right, thank you so much.
See you later. Area code 865. You're on the Thinking Atheist radio podcast. Who's this?
Hi, my name is Lauren. This is the first time I have called in, so I'm really excited to get to talk to you.
I'm excited to get to talk to you, Lauren. What's going on with you?
Well, I wanted to tell a story about something that happened this weekend. Not really so much what I did as the reaction to it. I'm an unbeliever. I'm an atheist, I guess. Humanist would probably be the best term. But I saw a guy that was down on his luck, and he had a sign, homeless, looking for a job, will work for food, God bless. And being in North Carolina, if you don't put God bless, nobody's going to pay any attention to it. So I pulled up to him, and I asked him if he was hungry. I was on my way to pick up lunch. And he said, yeah. So we went and got lunch at the restaurant right across the street from where he was. And we sat and talked for like an hour. He was originally from Texas. He was trying to earn money for a bus ticket to get back to Texas. And he was just really down on his luck, lost his job, had a kid to support and couldn't support her because he didn't have a job. So, I had some extra cash in my pocket. So we went to Walmart. I got him some basic toiletries, a razor, shaving cream, toothbrush, toothpaste, soap. And I got him a room to stay in for the night, just a cheap Econo Lodge, something to keep him out of the rain for the night. And I checked my bank account, and I had plenty to do it with, so I got him a bus ticket. He was just more than grateful, and I was glad that I had the opportunity to help him out.
What I like about your story, too, is that you were part of a specific and practical solution. I find myself hugely distrustful of many, and it's because it's really impossible to know the difference. If someone has a sign out and it says, please give, well, some of these people have made a career out of it. I don't know where that money's going to go. Once I give it to you, is it going to go toward food? Are you going to, you head into the liquor store? I really feel like, are you hungry? I'll buy you a burger. Do you need a coat? I'll buy you a coat and gloves and boots. And so I find myself, one way to sort of protect myself against the con artist is to try to get specific. And I don't know if that's a good solution or not. It's simply the one that has worked for me. Well, honestly, I'm glad you were there to make a difference, and I appreciate you sharing the story. And thanks so much for listening to the show. It means a lot.
Thank you very much.
All right, take care. What I often will hear in the wake of those types of stories where you are providing benefit to someone is, God used you. We are his hands. We are his feet. There was a band in the 80s called Whiteheart. They actually had a song called We Are His Hands. We are his hands. We are his feet. We are his people. And so the idea is that God uses us. So it's a miracle, except you and I went to the grocery store and we bought the bag of groceries and drove it to their house and gave it to them and perhaps even prepared it and cooked it and cleaned up the mess when it was over and gave them the coat and hugged them and told them it was going to be okay. God gets the credit for that because we are his hands, we are his feet. That's a lot of what I heard when I was in the church. Had an email from Melody. She said, I was indoctrinated from birth and I've since chosen to be an atheist. I was religious into my early 20s, but slowly drifted away from weekly services and tithing then. It wasn't until the past couple of years I started thinking, researching, and reading, and things that didn't quite add up for me, and I couldn't pretend not to know the information I now knew. I was an atheist. It took me almost a year to say the words, I am an atheist, aloud at 35 years old. I know I've always been a kind person, but I've also been a timid, fearful, sit down, shut up, don't talk unless I'm asked to, follow the golden rule Christian labeled person. Again, kind but afraid and easily intimidated, which for me left me with good intentions, but somewhat fearful of doing much of anything, afraid it would be wrong, and pissing off the sky man upstairs. After deciding to be an atheist, my outlook toward outwardly doing, caring, and sharing has been something I thoroughly enjoy. In the past week, I've taken comforting things to my sick friend and taken the time to help another grocery shop. These are things I do with no expectation of a jewel in my crown. I do it because it feels good. It's what I want to do. I can't really explain the reward other than knowing I'm making the world a better place by doing minor things that really matter to me without hesitation, reward, or punishment. Life is good. Random acts of kindness come in so many forms. You see somebody at a restaurant eating by themselves, and pay for the meal, and then take off before they realize who did it. Give blood. Donate some books to the library. Let somebody in front of you in a long line, especially if it looks like they're in a hurry. You know they've got to be somewhere, or at least think they do. Fine. Hop in front of me. Donate blankets and towels and sheets and warm stuff to the local animal shelter. Chances are they could probably use it. You're driving down the highway, there's a toll booth there. You go through and you go ahead and pay the toll of whoever pulls up behind you. Hey, look, I'm going to pay their toll too. How funky would that be? They pull in behind you and they expect to drop off their $2, $4, $5, whatever dollars. Oh, it's taken care of. The person in front of you did it. I mean, it makes me smile just thinking about it. Wash dirty dishes that aren't yours. Hold open a door for somebody. Let somebody else have that primo parking space. Oh, yeah, you know it. You got there, you're driving around, you're looking for a place that's closed. Jeez, it's cold outside. It's so freaking cold. Oh, look. Oh, there's one right up front. Oh, yeah. Oh, wait a minute. There's somebody else. Now, instinct kicks in and it becomes a competition, right? Look, I'm going to pull around here and I'm going to take a left and I'm going to beat them and I'm going to slide into that spot and that's mine, damn it. No, let them have it. In fact, sit there, block it off till they get around and then wave them in and smile at them. How cool would that be? Tell somebody else how good they look today. Hey, you look great. Volunteer your time. Do something that matters to you and find a way to volunteer. Buy a round of drinks for somebody. Give somebody your seat on a bus. Write somebody a thank you note. Put a coin in the parking meter that is not yours. There's a guy who used to go do that. I forgot what city it was. He used to just walk, I don't know if he was rich or just had tons of spare change. He used to just walk around and he used to plug coins in everybody's meter so nobody had a parking ticket. Well, the city got pissed off because they weren't able to find anybody, and I guess they told him he could no longer go do that. I wish I had the article in front of me. It just popped in my head. But he would just go around street to street, block to block, and just plug quarters in the meters, and nobody had any parking tickets. Nobody had to pay the fines. Look, the city lost money. That sucks. Let's make this guy illegal. Tell somebody at a restaurant, I want to talk to the manager real quick. Not because I want to complain, but because we got such good service. Tom was working our table. I'll tell you, Tom is so good. We tipped him a little extra, but I just wanted the manager to know that he took really good care of us tonight, and I just want the boss to know, okay? I do this myself, and the reason is because if we are going to complain about being blown off or treated poorly, somebody looks like they didn't care if you lived or breathed, and you took your family out for a meal, and they just treat you lousy. Well, if you're going to go and say, look, you might want to take a second look at this person. Customer service may not be their forte. Don't take my word for it. Just keep an eye on them. If you're going to do that, I think if someone comes out and really shines and excels and goes above and beyond and makes you feel good, makes you feel like you're having a great time, makes you feel at home, man, grab the boss. Look, can I talk to the manager for a second? This person was freaking amazing. And he probably doesn't hear it enough, and maybe you don't either, but I just want to say something. You guys, thank you. Thanks for having this place and for making tonight so good. It just makes people's day. People can go a month on a compliment. Bake cookies and take it up to like the fire station. Mow somebody's lawn while they're away. They come back and their lawn's totally mowed and edged. How cool is that? I know some people who do like a jar. They put this jar in the house. And anytime they got spare change, anytime you reach in your pocket and there's change, and you notice it, you pull out the change and you stick it in the jar. And you do this 365 days, right? The whole year. And everybody does it. At the end of the year, you give that jar to someone in need. Maybe you leave it on the porch. I don't know. It depends on the neighborhood. Maybe you use the money to purchase something for someone. It's amazing how that stuff would totally add up, wouldn't it? Lots of good stuff. Area code 816. You're on the Thinking Atheist radio podcast. Who's this?
Oh, my name's Kenny.
Kenny, thanks so much for waiting. Thanks for calling. What do you have for us tonight?
Going back to helping out the homeless. Like last summer, I live in Kansas City, so in the Midwest it gets really hot during the summertime. And I was driving around with a girlfriend, and we saw this homeless woman sitting outside, and it's like July. It's probably 90 degrees outside, so it's really hot. And we went to the local store, and we bought her a couple of gallons of water, and just gave it to her. Because obviously it's hot, so we didn't want her to dehydrate and everything. And also, I've seen some, kind of was just talking about earlier, some bad examples. You see people who just are maybe trying to just scam people, just stand outside with the sign and everything, just trying to get money, even though they probably really don't need it. Once my parents, my mom told me the story, they went out, somewhere, and they saw this homeless guy standing, with the sign, need food and everything. And there was a McDonald's right across the street from where he was at, and they went and bought him food. And when they brought the food back, he gave it to him. He got an attitude and slapped the food out of her hand and said he don't need food, he need money.
It's hard for me. I think we need to be skeptics. And I think, we want to be able to look at all situations and say, oh, yeah, they're legitimate. I remember once when I was in radio, I used to go in at 5 in the morning, a little bit before 5 a.m. to do the morning show. And there was a guy who was out in front of a convenience store. He needed money for gas or something. Well, I was pretty young and I was pretty naive. And so I don't know how much money I gave him. Hey, you need a ride over to your vehicle? No, I don't need it. No, I don't need it. Oh, really? No. I'll walk there. I'll walk there. Oh, okay. And so I go. Well, it had been 3 or 4 months later. And I went by another convenience store. It was about a mile down the street. And the same guy came up to me, not remembering me. And he said, hey, man, I ran out of gas. I could sure use $20-30. And he was, this was his job, to go and con people out of their money, to play on their goodwill and pocket the coin. And I looked at him, I said, dude, you and I had this little dance about 3 months ago. Do you remember that? Oh, yeah. And then he was gone. I think, you got to protect yourself. And it's unpopular to say out loud. Some people flip out when you say, but some of these people are scamming us. Some of these people there are a lot of people in genuine need in this world. I want my money to go to them. I don't want it to either go to the guy who's conning me or scamming me, or is just simply too lazy to go out and try to do anything productive with his life. All he wants to do is stand on the corner, make excuses about himself, and hold out a tin cup. I'm sorry, that's not the guy I'm going to give my money to. You can, but I'm not going to do it, okay?
When I see these signs, I'm like, well, you can get a job holding the sign and make money, and you're just standing here.
You can be the guy in the Statue of Liberty costume outside of the tax place down the road. You should see this dude.
Right.
It's a tax place, and they advertise themselves by dressing this poor guy up in a Statue of Liberty costume, and he walks up and down the street. Well, at least he's doing something. Anything else?
Going back to we talked about at the beginning of the show, have you seen the trailer for the new Noah? It's about Noah's Ark.
Yes, I've seen it.
Yeah, I've seen some people are trying to advertise it as factual events, like this actually happened. So I'm kind of seeing what's going to happen when this movie actually comes out, how people are going to react to it.
Well, keep in mind the director's not a Christian. In fact, I don't think he's a believer in any deity. And I believe he's taken a lot of artistic license with the story. And honestly, if he's going to take a myth and he's going to play a new angle and he's going to create some entertainment out of it, I'm in. I'll go check it out. What I lament is if it's close enough to the biblical account, you're going to be seeing a lot of religious parents dragging their poor, vulnerable children in there and telling them that all the crap they're seeing on the big screen actually happened 4,000 years ago. That's tragic. But you know what? If Aronofsky wants to put a new spin on the Noah story and Russell Crowe stars in it, I'll probably give him my $10. We'll go see what it's about. So I don't know. It comes out in March. We'll hook up afterwards and talk shop. Okay?
Yes. Thank you.
All right, man. Thanks for listening and thanks for calling. Take it easy. I had a message in from Sheila. Have a story about my neighbor who died just 2 years ago. He was in his mid to late 80s when his wife died, about a year before him. I didn't know him really well, but he was a good neighbor, well liked in the community, and he was an acquaintance of my dad. My parents, when they visited us and my dad saw Bill out in the backyard, they'd always visit. My dad died 7 years ago. Now, a few years before, when Bill and I were chatting in the backyard, I asked him a question about our air conditioner. He had owned a heating and cooling business before he retired, and he kindly volunteered to come over and look at it, saw what the problem was, and fixed it. I could tell he enjoyed being useful again. I knew he didn't expect payment, but I wanted to do something for him, and so I asked him what kind of pie he would like. And he told me there were only two kinds of pies that he liked: hot pies and cold pies. This was something I had heard him say before. I knew he liked pies, and I knew his wife didn't make pies. Anyway, that's what I made from him: rhubarb pie. I knew he loved rhubarb because we always shared the rhubarb from our garden with them. After Bill's wife died, I imagined him lonely and kind of lost without her. I wanted to do something for him. I didn't know him that well. One day I saw him getting his lunch at the deli from the local store. I chatted with him and told him I had baked cookies. I'd bring some over to him. Well, he couldn't hear very well, and I wasn't even sure if he recognized me. But I think he understood what I said. As soon as I got home, I headed to his back door with the cookies. Through the window, I saw him sitting alone at his kitchen table eating his store-bought lunch. I knocked, but he didn't hear. I waited, and he happened to glance toward the window, and he saw me. He opened the back door, and he greeted me with a smile. I was taller than him, but I was standing on the step below, so he was up higher than me. I told him in a loud voice that I brought cookies. Snickerdoodle cookies. He smiled, and he bent down, and he kissed me on my forehead. I could see the gratitude in his eyes. Although Bill was older than my dad, seemed more like a grandfatherly figure, I felt like I was getting a kiss from my dad. And I walked back to my house with tears in my eyes. It still makes me tear up just thinking about it. I sent over more food after that. He later moved into a retirement home. I saw him again when he was having an estate sale. He invited me to have lunch with him at the retirement home. I accepted the invitation and planned on taking him up on it. Sadly, he passed away before that happened. Thanks for reading. Sheila, thank you so much for sharing this story. Area code 850, you're on the Thinking Atheist radio podcast. Hi, who's this?
This is Alan. How are you doing, Seth?
I'm well, Alan. Thanks so much for calling. Thanks for listening. What do you have for us tonight?
First off, I'd like to thank you for doing the podcast. I'm currently going through your entire back stock, and I'm about 2 years behind at the moment.
Well, thanks for listening to those. I appreciate it. It's a far from perfect show, but it's something I'm really proud of. I think there's a lot of good stuff there, and it's been an exciting thing to be a part of. So thank you.
You should be proud, because I've listened to about 10 other podcasts, and yours is pretty much the only one I can listen to.
well, thanks. I appreciate it. Well, we're talking about random acts of kindness tonight. What do you have for us?
Well, 4 years ago, I went on a bicycle trip to find myself. Went about 3,000 miles up the East Coast, and there were two times that I did random acts of kindness. One was there was this guy panhandling, basically, and I decided to give him some of my food rations that I had with me. And he said thanks and everything, but something kind of weird happened, and like 10 miles after that, my bike broke down, and I got help from someone else. So it's almost like karma. There was so much stuff on my trip that happened to me, just random acts of kindness that I was a recipient of, that it was actually quite amazing how many kind people there are out there.
Well, it gives you hope for the species, my friend. Gives you hope.
Yes, it does.
I'm glad to hear your perspective, and I appreciate you listening, and thanks for catching up on all the podcasts. I think we're at 140-something, so it looks like you got enough to keep you busy for a while.
Oh, yeah. 6 to 7 a week.
Thanks for that. I appreciate it very much.
No problem.
All right, take it easy.
Thanks, Brent.
Did you hear about those guys in, I guess it was Dallas? They worked at a car dealership, and they ordered a pizza or two pizzas, and there was some kind of a mix-up. 80 pizzas are delivered to the dealership. Like 80 pizzas. And according to the story, which was actually written about in the Huffington Post, these guys went ahead and paid for all the pizza. And instead of letting them go to waste, they took a car out of the lot. They went into the streets of Dallas and they fed homeless people. Now, the cynic in you is thinking, wow, what great advertisement for the dealership. And I'm sure it was. They got a write-up in the Huffington Post and probably in other outlets around the country. But some of us, the optimists among us, do hear the story and think it's a beautiful gesture. I could have flipped out and said, I'm not paying for these 80 pizzas. Or they pack them in a car and they go out and they feed some hungry mouths. Everybody wins. It's a great story. It's my kind of story. How about those guys who dress up as superheroes just for random acts of kindness? They're in Illinois. A guy named Kyle, another guy named Zaid. 16 years old. They live in Dixon, Illinois. They dress up as superheroes for random acts of kindness. They just go around and do stuff like buying groceries, helping people out, little old ladies across the street. There's even a video. They've got like a YouTube channel video of them doing this kind of stuff, which I dig. I mean, it's a great example to set for others. The YouTube channel is called Hidden Reaction. I've got Josh on Skype. Thanks for calling the Thinking Atheist radio podcast. What's going on?
Hi, mate. How you going?
I'm doing well, sir. We're talking random acts of kindness tonight.
The one act of kindness I sort of did just think of, a couple of years ago in Brisbane, we had the big flooding of the whole city. And, I mean, we had suburbs wiped out. They were just covered in 3 or 4 foot of mud, and it was horrible. And people were left homeless. We had 50, 60,000 houses basically destroyed. The local government put out the word that, look, we need volunteers to come and help clean the mess up. There was heaps of companies that provided dump trucks and food and water and stuff. And we were getting 100,000 people a day. The city council put free buses on to take us to the areas that needed to be cleaned up. And basically, we were broken into work groups of 30 people, all complete strangers from every walk of life. And it was fantastic, and it was great to be part of.
When a crisis strikes, it really does show. It's funny, I was reading an article just this week. It was reflecting on the Boston Marathon bombing and how you had 2 people who were agents of violence and death. But you saw thousands more who were agents of kindness and compassion and healing and help in the moment of crisis. And I honestly feel that that's a pretty good reflection of humanity. You're going to find your worst case scenarios. Yep. You're going to find the people who are agents of destruction and chaos and violence and pain and hate and death and all that stuff. But for every one of those, you'll find so many more who genuinely want to be a part of the solution and who will be there for you when the chips are down. So it does encourage me. Josh, thanks so much for calling the show, my friend.
All right, mate. You take care.
All right. Take care of yourself. Thank you. There was a story by Miriam that said this. It was 2 weeks before Christmas, and I'd taken off time of work to spend with my kids. I wanted the chance to sort of teach them about the spirit of Christmas, how family, humanity, and love for all people is what the season is about, and not just presents. We wrote cards to relatives and friends, and we planned our Christmas meal. However, something happened that was unplanned that demonstrated the spirit of Christmas more than I could have imagined. Now, on most days around this time, things are starting to get busy. I was already running late after taking too long loading up the kids in the car and getting going. After turning the corner and zipping down to the main road, I stopped at a T-junction, and right there I noticed there was a big pile of mail on the road. And I quickly realized that this mail must have fallen off a postal service truck. Now, despite all the lip service I'd given to love and humanity to my children, at the moment I found myself having this internal debate. Like I was already late. I do not have time to stop. I told myself, keep going. You don't have time. The road is busy. Somebody else is going to see this stuff. Somebody else will stop. And then other thoughts came into my mind. There could be letters to relatives, letters to granny from their grandchild, undelivered bills that will go overdue, maybe with penalties if they're not delivered. So I looked down at my 6-year-old daughter and I said, should I stop and pick them up? And she looked up and matter-of-factly just said it. Of course. Yeah. mean, to her, it was obvious. Yeah, we got to stop. So I pulled over. Cars are whizzing by. Many of the letters were airborne. They're just rolling down the road, and I thought to myself, all right, fine, just do your best, pick up one at a time, and eventually you'll get them all. And so I did. I started picking up the letters, and before I knew it, 2 other cars pulled over, and their drivers had joined me in scooping up all the mail. Meanwhile, 2 other drivers had stopped their cars on each side of the main road, and they were directing and halting traffic while we picked up the letters until they were all collected. We got them all. And just then, a relieved and very grateful young postman pulled up. I looked at the cars and those extra helping hands, and we all just smiled at each other. We didn't say a word, but we knew we'd done something very special that day. We'd worked together for the good of all without a cause or reward. But the most important lesson I learned that day was from my daughter. Her instincts were pure and clear of heart. She taught me more about the spirit of Christmas than I had ever taught her. I've got Twilight on Skype. You're on the Thinking Atheist radio podcast. Who's this?
Just go ahead and call me T.
Pete, thanks so much for calling.
Speak to you, Seth.
It's a pleasure to have you on the show. What's going on?
Not much. Just had a couple of points I wanted to raise. First one is you mentioned it earlier on tonight, the little story, We Are God's Hands. I always found that one kind of an interesting thing because basically it's like if God gives us free will, then how are we able to do what he wants us to do?
Well, I think the story is that he has a plan, a design, a request, a command, a charge, but we have free will to follow his lead and obey his direction. So I don't know if there's a conflict there. If he has a plan and he doesn't, supposedly according to the doctrine, if he doesn't force you to do it, you have free will to choose one way or the other. And of course, in the bigger picture, you're choosing to displease the deity that might send you to hell. So I can see the challenge there. Yeah, I don't know. What else you got?
I actually think it's more amazing to consider that these things happen by chance and we can do such amazing and wonderful things for people. The original reason, though, that I called is a little bit more broad. Not so much what we do as why we do it. I've been asking myself for quite a while, from the atheist perspective, how is it that we do have morality? And it took me quite a while thinking about it, probably a couple of years, but I think I finally figured it out. The Christians always talk about how it's God's instructions, but I think what it really comes down to is it's what brings us together. It's the social cohesion that is where we get our morality from. These different things that we do, these services to each other, it's things that brings us closer and gives us a stronger connection to each other.
What benefits you, benefits me, benefits the species. I think it makes perfect sense.
Well, and it's not just benefits me. That's what's always given me so much trouble about it. Some things that are considered good do benefit me or do benefit you, but some things that are considered moral actions are actually harmful, either to myself or to a smaller group, but they have a much bigger reaching benefit.
But in the big picture, I think it stands. I mean, it benefits everyone. Ultimately, the species, humanity benefits when we commit moral and right acts toward each other. And, Sam Harris has some amazing work on this very topic, the moral landscape, the myth of secular moral chaos, those types of things. And so I totally agree, man. I appreciate the call very much.
Thanks.
All right, take it easy. Had a message that said I was in a long line waiting outside the college bookstore, along with a group of other students, to get my college book. It started pouring down rain so hard, and it was very cold. Everybody was soaking wet, except a few like me who had an umbrella. The lady behind me was just shivering, and I could tell she was very cold. I shared my umbrella with her until we got inside the store. I felt really good, even though I'd done something so tiny as sharing my umbrella. Well, that was 2 years ago. This past week it snowed, and as I came out of my job, my car had been cleaned of all snow. But who knows who did it? This is proof that acts go round and round and round. One more, area code 774. You're on the Thinking Atheist radio podcast. Who's this?
Hey, Seth, it's Andy up in Massachusetts. I'll tell you, man, I haven't been able to catch a live show in a little while. It's cathartic to be able to go and listen in, man, I'm telling you.
I'm glad you're here.
I wanted to share with you two experiences that come to mind. I went down to Hurricane Sandy with a veterans nonprofit called Team Rubicon, just doing pro bono disaster relief work, everything from chainsaw work to mucking basements, kind of like our Australian friend was describing there down in New York. And it was interesting to go, and here I am taking time off from work and getting ready to prep to go down. And I'm standing in line, and I'm at a Home Depot buying some supplies for myself, and I'm listening to two older gentlemen have the exact same discussion that we're talking about right now, which is, I think, the question that always seems to come up is, can non-religious folks do good things? These people are just demonizing atheists, and I just have a gut feeling that tells me that they didn't know any of that. They realized we're non-believers, because there's no way. And, to head down and to be surrounded by people, if somebody mentioned, I think it was you said, volunteer work. Man, people need to volunteer more. There is nothing like going into a situation and doing something for someone else for free, not expecting anything in return, and enjoying the fruits afterwards, because something good will come of it, whether it's an adrenaline release or a feel-good feeling type thing, or whether it's, something that you end up putting on your resume. Why more people don't volunteer? Beyond me. I recall going down and find a house that had been, all the trees around it had collapsed, and these people had locked their back door, had a dog run with a stockade fence, and they locked it from the outside. And the front and the garage were both covered with these gigantic maple trees. There was no way that they were getting out, and there were two frail elderly folks inside. No phone service, no water, no heat, nothing. And remember cutting them out, cutting them free, getting them medevac by the fire department. And I remember the person looking at me and saying, "God bless you, Jesus sent you." And it's so hard to hold your tongue. But, it's so hard to hold your tongue. But you know what? I'll tell you right now, especially when I went down to Breezy Point and down to Rockaway down in New York, where 12 feet of water just came and wiped these people's houses out. I mean, I've never seen houses picked up and slammed down 100 yards from where the foundation is. And I got to see that for the first time. One of the things that I was a little bit perturbed by, and I'm guessing, judging by your personality, you would have felt the same way. The whole argument that seems to come up after major disasters, whether it's Moore, Oklahoma there, or Hurricane Sandy, etc., of do you let people hold on to God if God is the only thing that's keeping them going? And you get these, these militant atheist folks who I sometimes do identify with. No, you strike while the iron's hot, you strike while they're weak. It's like, dude, you ass. These people have nothing left. Shut up and do something for them. Don't pray like the Christians and like the Muslims and like the Jews and like the Hindus are. Don't sit down and say, well, I'll pray for them. Do something.
If you're close enough to it, it'll come out that you didn't do it for religious reasons or that you're not a religious person. I mean, if it's just one of those things where you happen to be there and you're able to make a difference, it should be about helping someone a whole lot more than about making a statement. I always like to say it's not enough to be right. We also have to be effective. And if you go out and you pour your atheism all over an amazing act, even if you are factually right, that you do a poor job of choosing your battles, you may have done more damage than good. Were you there to make a point or were you there to be kind? And so I totally take your point. Well said, my friend. Well said.
Yeah, and I'll leave you with this thought. In my volunteerism and doing disaster relief work pro bono, I have learned more about my atheist self. I mean, I separated from religion. You're talking about 2011, October of 11. And I've learned more about myself in those situations and learned more about my atheism and learned more about morality than I did in a decade sitting in the pews. And so I encourage everybody out there, go do some volunteer work. You don't know what you're missing. So,
fantastic.
Hey, Seth, thanks. Keep up the good work.
Thanks for a great call, my friend. Happy New Year. We'll see you later.
Happy 2014.
All right. Catch you later. As the Thinking Atheist community moves into the new year and gets ready for I don't know what, I do hope that we sort of keep our focus on ways to benefit, whether it's the occasional charity drive or whatnot. We can't, especially in the wake of our December efforts, I've gotten so many, dozens upon dozens upon dozens upon dozens of requests for this or that or a fundraiser or cause of charity, what have you. There's just no way. This page would be nothing, but it would be a bulletin board for fundraisers, is all it would be. I mean, I understand it's not practical. It's really not the right thing to do. But from time to time, we will hit the brakes and we will focus on specific causes, specific people. We will. And make a difference and feel really good about it. And, I hope that continues to sort of be the temperature of this community in the days, weeks, months, years ahead. And whether atheists, the Thinking Atheist remains the moniker, I don't know. Will these efforts evolve into something else? Will it branch out into another organization that has humanist in the title? I don't know. But as long as I'm here, I feel like I have a responsibility. I don't want to be the guy who's defined by just being angry and pissed off and snarky. And, I don't want to be known as the guy who's the debater, who's those things are often true about me. Do they define me? Are they what I'm about? I really want to be the guy who is part of a family, a community, who loves people, who wants to be a positive force in the world in whatever way he can and wants to encourage other people to do the same. And, that's a legacy worth having, isn't it? Go out and find opportunities large and small to change somebody's world, and you just might change your own. Next Tuesday night, Steve Wells, the author of The Skeptics Annotated Bible, is going to be my special guest. And it's going to be a ball as we take sort of a hard examination of the scriptures. That's going to be a great time. Tuesday night, 6 o'clock Central next week on the Thinking Atheist radio podcast. Thanks for listening.
Follow The Thinking Atheist on Facebook and Twitter. Watch dozens of original videos on the Thinking Atheist YouTube channel. And visit our website for resources, links, contact information, the editor's blog, and more. thethinkingatheist.com.